Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. Drake is off this week, so it's just me today. And I thought I would talk a little bit about painting models. Now, I'm not a great painter. I don't pretend to be. I don't do much in the way of painting tutorials or anything like that because, frankly, first of all, I don't enjoy painting that much. And second of all, the few techniques that I have gotten, decent at, I wouldn't say I've mastered any, but things like dry brushing or base coating or using contrasts. There are a million people on the interwebs that can teach that way better than I can. And also, I think there's a bunch of people on the internet that I watch who are all trying to take painting to the next level, and how you deal with lighting and how you deal with getting good blends and wet blending and this and that, and all of that is very cool. And I think I can appreciate the skill that all that takes because I've tried some of that before, and it's at least at first it's not easy, right? So that's a long preamble, a long way of just saying that I don't do painting really for the channel, except that I strongly encourage everybody who has some minis to get them painted. It may not be the best paint job in the world. It's not going to be featured in a magazine, but it will look a million times better than plain gray plastic on the tabletop. Plus, when it's on the tabletop and you're looking at a mini from a couple feet away, the littlest markings, you're not going to see little tiny errors. You're not going to see little places where you missed. You're not going to do any of that. What you're going to see is a cool model on the tabletop, and that's going to enhance your experience. So I guess I'm not really a painter. I'm not really I'm definitely not a painting instructor, but I guess I am a painting encourager. Right? I encourage everybody to get the painting on. Don't be scared of putting paint on a mini. Don't be scared that you're going to ruin it. The worst paint job in the world looks better than gray plastic. And I mean that really. You can go online and find some terrible paint jobs. And some of them will look a little bit silly. And some of them, might make you smile when you're moving somebody around who's supposed to be a giant warrior and they look like a goober. But it's better than the gray plastic. The gray plastic, to me, is barely one step up above like chess pieces that have no detail at all, and they're just markers. Okay, so why am I talking about all this? Well, the reason is I happened to receive a Kickstarter. Now, I Kickstarted this thing pre-COVID. That's how long, and it just came, maybe a week or so ago. So like all Kickstarters, it seems they had some delays. Previously, a couple years before that, I backed this board game, this Conan board game. And I like Conan. I think it's sort of a cool setting, a cool character. And the game, it was pretty fun. It's, without going into too much detail, you have one person who sort of controls the bad guys, and then every other person gets to control a good guy, and it's got this interesting turn structure where you just sort of keep going in a free-flowing way. It's got resource management, and then everything is a scenario, right? There's no just get out the stuff and play. You have to flip through the book and pick a scenario, and then you play that. And it was pretty fun. I really liked it. But I didn't like the scenario aspect of it, and I didn't like that whoever was playing the bad guy in many scenarios, not all, but in many, if they played it just trying to win, just trying to get the victory, it wasn't super fun for everybody. Because oftentimes that meant just targeting the weakest hero and killing them down, or turtling up in an area and being real defensive so the heroes couldn't kill through in time. And those didn't give the best plays. So the bad guy wasn't just an opponent, it was sort of opponent slash game master in a way. And that made it hard to draw the line, right? So that wasn't great. But just before COVID, this new Kickstarter comes out with an expansion saying, hey, we're going to add on a co-op mode. And I love cooperative gameplay. I think it's super fun. And I can play it with my kids, and it's great. So I backed it now. It came, like I said, a couple weeks ago. And so I was pulling out my old Conan stuff, which, especially since I've gotten into Warhammer, hasn't really seen the light of day. But, there's a lot of miniatures, of board game minis. And I started pulling them out and just looking through them. And, I would never have guessed, but my miniature painting has come quite a long way. So the one that struck me the most was this guy. I'll put a picture up here. It's a bone golem. And what I ended up doing is I painted the whole thing, my skeleton bone color from Army Painter, hit it with a wash, and I'm done. And it doesn't look great. I mean, it looks a million times better than the gray plastic, for sure, because you now can see detail. And it does look like even on the table, right? It looks like a pile of bones walking around rather than this sort of the gray lump it looked like before. But looking at it now, man, if I had hit this thing with just a light dry brush to pop some highlights on it, I think it would have been really nice. Whereas now it's really sort of only two colors, the skeleton bone color and then a brownish wash in the recesses. The other thing I looked at, I wanted to sort of compare, is I took out two models. One is, and I'll put these up as well, one is a zombie, or maybe it's a mummy, but it's some kind of undead creature from Conan, and he's holding a big sword across his lap. And I think it looks okay. It looks fine. I painted the skin sort of a greenish color. I think it's like rotten flesh or something from Army Painter. I painted the wrappings, and then it's his little tunic, sort of brown, and then I hit the sword with a metal. I think I just did an Army Painter strong tone over the whole model. And once again, I called it a day. Again, I think a couple of highlights would have been good, but I think the real issue here with this one, and by the way, again, a million times better than gray, and it looks, from far away, it looks great. But I think the one issue is all the items I chose to paint it. The not even dark brown, the brownish pants, the dirty cloth, the greenish skin. It all sort of blends together. There's not a lot of complementary colors. There's not a lot of pop. And so it does look a little mottled. And I compare that to this zombie that I painted for the Soulblight Gravelords, newer paint. And now it's not a million times better. It's not far and away. It's like, oh yeah, you can really see how this is better, because I'm still just painting to tabletop quality. But the couple things I noticed are, I like that the skin is a little bit grayer, which I sort of thought was cool. But I used some contrast paints, and you can tell that with the hair, so the hair looks better. And also, I decided to choose some colors that really popped, like the dark grayish, sort of bluish skin I set up against this orangish dress, and so that pops a little bit more. The orangish dress has on a just off-white band around the waist, and that pops out a little bit more. So on the tabletop, again, I'm sure there's a million errors in there, and if it's never going to be in a magazine, but if you're looking at it on the tabletop, you don't see any of that, but you do see the different colors pop against each other from that distance, and so it ends up looking real nice. Just recently, I've been painting up, we got Kill Team Nachmund, and I painted up my first ever Space Marines, and those were sort of cool. It was interesting because each Chaos Space Marine was, one step away from paint by numbers. It was really easy to, I primed in black, and then I did all the trim, And then I did all the weapons. And then I did all the, each thing, one after the next. I did all the eyes. I did all the loincloths red. And that was sort of cool. Just, it lent itself really well to batch painting, which was sort of nice. But anyway, the whole point of this video is, one, even the bone golem looks a lot better than gray. So get your minis painted, they will look good. But it was also nice to look and see how the mini painting has progressed over the last couple of years. I mean, just the last couple of years as I got into Warhammer, because even though I painted my board game minis, I just didn't have a lot of them. So hasn't been a lot of experience doing that. But I have now painted, my fair share of Warhammer minis. And so it is nice to see how things have improved over time. And even though there isn't one thing, it's not like I can say, sometimes you'll see the YouTube videos and they're like, the one technique that raised my game. No, the one thing that I learned that took me to a pro painter. No, I haven't learned that one thing yet. But what I have learned is that you just keep doing it, and the slow and steady improvements over time. And it's a blast playing with the guys on the table who look, they look cool. They help the narrative, they help the story, they help the immersion. So, like I said, I'm not a painting coach, not a painting instructor, but I am, or at least I want to be, a painting encourager. So get out there and start painting. You're not going to mess it up. And this bone guy, like I said, that I've pulled him out of the baggie. That's where they are, my board games in baggies. I pulled him out of the baggie and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy could have really used a dry brush. There's things on here I could have fixed. While all true, I would be happy to plunk this guy down and play a game of Conan with him. I think that would be fun. I think it'd be great. This wouldn't be embarrassing. This wouldn't be something that I'd cry about or have to apologize to my friends or say, try not to get too mad about my bone golem. No, I'd put him down and people would be like, okay, cool, bone golem, let's go. So I do think that sometimes people get in their head a little bit about needing to make it look like the people on YouTube or in the magazines or the way that heavy metal does it. Doesn't need to be any of that. Put some color on your models. It will look fine. And the truth be told, if it doesn't look fine, if you do get to a place where you're just extremely unhappy with it, little simple green or LA's totally awesome, strip that puppy down and do it again. Or what I do, because I'm lazy, just paint over it. Just you put more paint on top and it's fine. So hopefully, I hope whoever needed to hear this and has been thinking about painting miniatures or is scared to start, or who has painted a few miniatures and thinks, this is too hard or too time consuming or whatever, focus on a tabletop ready standard, get to battle ready, and start playing your games. It's for me, if you want to be a display painter, more power to you. That's an amazing thing. I have a lot of respect for people that do that. There's some great YouTube channels that can help you out with that. But that's not what I am. I'm not someone who can help you out with that. But what I can tell you is, don't worry about that. If you want painted models to make your games better, do it. You will improve over time the same way as you practice everything. And even when you're not improving by learning new techniques and learning new skills, you will take the skills that you do have, and as you paint more and more models, you'll get quicker and quicker and quicker to where, you're painting whole squads in a fraction of the time that it used to take you. And you'll start to learn which things you really want to just take a little bit of extra time to, that shield or that pauldron or whatever that you think is really cool. And what things are like, oh my gosh, this guy has so many little pouches and beakers and flasks on his belt. And you just start going, all right, every pouch is contrast snakebite leather. Blah, blah, blah. Every beaker is, just some white with a little bit of blue at the bottom, and you just rush through it. And getting to know those preferences is just going to keep speeding you up as you go. So anyway, hope this has been helpful. Hope that if you haven't painted, or if you've only painted a few, that you keep going down the painting journey. It is 100% worth it. And if you're worried about, oh, it's not up to the quality that I really want to get to, that's fine. Start at the lower quality. Get some painting under your belt. Feel good about some finished projects. And then, feel good about your bone golem. And then later you come back to it and say, all right, now when I'm painting this next squad, now the thing that was giving me trouble before, I know how to approach it, so I'm gonna improve that. Or now I know I wanna try to put a little bit more effort into the faces. Or now I wanna try blending a little bit. Or now I realize that was way too much effort and I know what I can cut out. All of those are good learning things. Well, this has been another episode of Battle Ready. Thanks so much for watching.